Hello Digimon fans! So today we will be talking about a pretty interesting deck in BT-07. Yes, I know it's almost BT-8, but this deck is a little too interesting to just let it pass. Yes, indeed. I've actually featured it in two of my videos. Yes, if you watch my Kaiser Greymon deck video and my Magna Garurumon deck video, yes, both of them played against Black X-Antibody. Yes, so that's the deck we're gonna talk about today. Yes, it featured in two previous videos, but I have not made its deck profile yet. So, how do we make a Black X antibody deck? Well, let's jump right into it now.
X-Antibody was first introduced into this game via Omegamon X-Antibody. Well, of course, lore-wise, the first X-Antibody carrier in this game was Clavis Angemon, but in this card game, he was a pure virtual type, so I guess that doesn't really count. Well, anyway, BT6 teased us with some X-Antibody support via Alphamon, where you can stop 12 of your opponent's Digimon from attacking the player if you have a Royal Knight or an X-Antibody in play. Well, there were only two X-Antibody cards back then, so Alphamon hardly saw any play apart from being part of a Black Royal Knights deck. But with the latest X-Antibody support from Black, we are starting to see more of it. This deck centers around the Dorumon line. Coincidentally, two of Dorumon's megaforms are actually used in this deck, so I guess we can actually call it an actual Dorumon team deck. Dorugoromon is the centerpiece here. It basically focuses on having X-Antibody traded cards in its Digivolution cards. Every X-Antibody card gives it an extra 1000 DP boost, and to make it even better, you can add an X-Antibody card under it every time you attack to delete your opponent's Digimon. This effect is complemented by cards like Dorimon and Dorumon, which allows you to draw a card and gain a memory in the process. Dorugoremon also has an effect which allows you to put these cards into its Digivolution cards. And what's cool about it is that by doing so, you can prevent it from being deleted by effects or having its DP reduced. But do take note that it specifies deletion by effects. I've seen some players mistakenly think it cannot be deleted at all, but in this case, you can actually delete it in battle. Also, even though the English localization for it calls it Dorugreymon, Dorugreymon does not actually have Greymon in its name, so it can trigger effects like Masaru Daimon or Nokia Shiramine. This is because its name is actually Guremon, while those effects look for a card with Gureimon in its name. That's it, fret not. Even if you can't gain memory from Daimon or reduce your Digivolution cost with Nokia, you can still gain memory if you stick a Dorumon under it with its when Digivolving effect. Yes, I mean the effect of the Dorumon that's being put under the stack will activate. Pretty cool, huh? And to finish off the line, we have Darugomon, which acts as a blocker if you have another X-Antibody Digimon in play. It also gives your Dorugoromon extra bulk by boosting its DP by 1000 for all turns. So other than the Dorumon line, what other cards can we put in? Well, more X-Antibody cards of course. First thing that comes into mind is Omegamon X-Antibody. Yes, the OG X-Antibody in this game. Well, as a secret rare, it's pretty expensive, so as a budget option, you can go for other X-Antibody cards like Mametyromon and Dinorexmon. However, it's still not as good as Omegamon X-Antibody, as their only function is to be added to your stack by Darugaramon, and without any inherited effects, you might actually prefer to stick to other X-Antibody cards instead. Plus, they also cannot digivolve from Black Digimon, so there's a high chance that they will end up as dead cards in your hand. Well, Omegamon X-Antibody also does not have any inherited effects, and neither can it digivolve from Black Digimon as well. So, why is it better? Well, it's partly because we got a bridge to it. Since Omegamon X-Antibody can digivolve onto a Digimon with Omegamon in their name, you can have it digivolve from Omegamon Zwart or Omegamon Zwart Defeat. Omegamon Zwart is a pretty decent choice. Since this deck requires you to focus all your resources on one Digimon, there are times when you might not be wide enough to beat your opponent. Omegamon Zwart allows you to call out 2 Black Digimon with 8 or less play cost from your trash, so you'd be able to go wide. You can even call out 2 Dorugamon and hey presto! You've got 2 blockers to defend you. But an even better idea is Omegamon Zwart Defeat. While you actually need to build all the way up to level 7 to utilize Omegamon Zwart, Omegamon Zwart Defeat can be played from security, which makes it a perfect fit in this deck, as you might not want to mess with your Darugarmon by digivolving onto it. Plus, if your Omegamon Zwart is played from security, it will just take you 3 memory to digivolve onto Omegamon X later. And even without Omegamon X, you've got a big level 7 in play. Finally, one really cool card that can be used with Omegamon X Antibody is Kaiser Nail. Yeah, mama! Stick it into Dorugaramon, then Kaiser Nail it out! Well, Omegamon X might not have an on-play effect, but if you're playing a level 7 Digimon, which deletes a Digimon with 15,000 or less DP every time it attacks, that's still pretty strong, so I guess that makes up for the absence of on-play effects. Well, you gotta remember that Kaiser Nail is actually a blue option card, so you would need a blue tamer or Digimon in your breeding or battle area to be able to use it. So you can either go for BT-3 Chibimon and BT-3 Vmon, or you can have low-cost tamers like ST2 Yamato. Using BT-3 Chibimon and BT-3 Vmon would allow you to perform quick hits on your opponent's security and also be able to draw a card in the process. Also, with Dorumon having an on-play effect, you will still be able to build up your Black Digimon without much problems, since it lessens the impact of not having a Digitama to Digivolve onto. But if you don't really fancy all that, going with ST2 Yamato is a good choice as well, since it only costs 2 memory while it can potentially earn you memory, especially in the current meta, where we often see Bokomon and Nemon. That said, if you're feeling adventurous, you can also go for BT5 Sora and Joe. It might cost more, but you'd be gaining 1 extra memory than ST2 Yamato. I guess that's what they call high risk, high reward. Well, all said and done, X-Antibody cards outside of the Dorumon line are absolutely optional. In fact, most X-Antibody decks that top tournaments did so without these 3 cards. So you don't necessarily have to add them in. But if you do, make sure they're added in moderation. To lay some finishing touches on the X-Antibody team, we've got Domoto Kota. It's pretty crucial because it allows you to have at least 3 memory at the start of your turn, which is important because you'll be able to Digivolve into Dorugamon and start wrecking havoc! Plus, it's also a searcher, so it contributes to you being able to pick up more X-Antibody cards. That's why it's good to play around 3 or 4 of them. Also, since Domoto Kota's effect is on play, and you would only need to have 1 of them on your field after playing them, you can Digivolve the rest into Grumblemon. Well, it's not an X-Antibody card, but it allows you to build another line of Digimon. Well, it might be a bad idea if your opponent have ways to remove tamers, of course, but those cards are still pretty scarce at the moment. The most you'd see is probably a stray Zord defeat here and there, so it's pretty safe to use Grumblemon. So just like Grumblemon, this deck would need other non-X-Antibody cards to support it. BT2 Toy Agumon and Promo Sunarizamon are pretty common. In fact, most decks have a playset of them. BT2 Toy Agumon allows your Dorugaramon to gain reboot, so it won't be picked off by your opponent that easily, while Promo Sunarizamon allows Dorugaramon to have piercing. Hey wait, doesn't Dorugaramon only have 11,000 DP? Well, its your turn effect adds 1000 DP for every X-Antibody in its Digivolution cards, so you only need 2 X-Antibody cards under it to bump it up to 13,000 DP. Plus, Dorugamon's inherited effect gives it a 1000 DP boost at all turns, so you can hit the DP floor having only a Dorugamon under it. Also, if you Digivolve onto Sunarizamon, you can also get a Security attack boost. Another commonly used card is Chumon, as it stops your opponents from gaining memory. That's it, there isn't really a need to play that 4, so 2 will do. An honorable mention goes to Chikurimon, which can be pretty annoying if it's revealed in the security. Low-cost cards are a pretty good fit in this deck. Numemon and ST5 Dark Tyrannomon are 2 of the more commonly used low-cost champions. Partly because Numemon has a low play cost, while Dark Tyrannomon offers your team extra protection. Warumonzemon is also quite commonly used in this deck, as it allows you to ramp up to Dorugamon quickly. While Dorugaramon might need to have X-Antibody cards under it, you can still stick them under it later on. So it's not too bad an idea, especially if you only need 3 memory to build up to level 5. That said, you might not actually want to play a full playset of Warumonzemon, because there are other good level 5 Digimon to use, such as Rebellimon. Rebellimon is a purple Digimon, but its effect allows it to be treated as a black Digimon when it's in play. It can also grant itself blocker and retaliation, which can be pretty useful. Well, if you watched my Magnagarumon video, you would have seen it in action. So with the Motokota on the field, you can actually Digivolve into it for 3 memory, then Digivolve once again into Dorugaramon, giving yourself a level 6 blocker with retaliation. Well, it might only last until the end of your opponent's turn, but imagine the pressure you put on them for that turn. Speaking of level 6 blockers, SD5 Megadramon can also pull off the same trick permanently by turning your Dorugaramon into a blocker. but without retaliation. It's quite commonly used as well actually, though if you prefer a more offensive approach, there is Volcanomon and BT-2 Metal Greymon to give you that extra security check. Now that we're almost done with the whole deck, we just have to add in some options to support them. Black Memory Boost seems to be the most popular option card, as not only does it act as a memory bank, it also allows you to search for a black Digimon. Do take note though, you cannot pick Rebellimon with this option because Rebellimon's turn effect is only active if it's in play. Other than that, Tekken Seisai is also a very popular card. It's possibly the best removal in black, and while its effect might be a bit restrictive, it can result in you deleting a few of your opponent's Digimon at one go. Other commonly used cards include God Blast, Metal Cannon, and Final Zubagon Punch. God Blast is mainly used for its security effect, but if you have a BT-2 Metal Greymon in the deck, it's a good choice to have it. Meanwhile, Metal Cannon fits into the X-Antibody team of this deck. It gives you a lot of draw power when you get your Dorugamon rolling. And finally, Final Zubagon Punch gives your deck an all-round boost both in offense and defense. Together with Tsunarizamon, you can actually swing with a huge piercing monster that can make 2 checks, then restand and be ready to block with it in your opponent's next turn. Other worthy mentions for this deck includes BT-5 Izumi Koshiro and Joe Kiddo, which gives you extra memory and draw power. There's also Shademon, which gives you an extra blocker and more trolling from security, and Ultimate Flare, which is really great for bot control given how often people utilize Bokomon and Nemon in this meta. And so finally, this is my final deck list. I decided against running the Kaizenil variant as I'm not too fond of running gimmicky decks, especially when it doesn't stand a chance against the current meta decks. I also have a pretty big amount of rookies because I want to keep Tsunarizamon in play without digivolving into it. Well, it doesn't happen that often, but if it can, then I won't complain really. Also, I went with the less popular Ultimate Flare instead of the more popular Tekken Seisai, since it can somewhat bypass effects like Decoy, God Bless, Dorugure's when digivolving effect, or Cranimon's all-turn effect. Well, I mean, the rookie will still not be deleted, but at least if it's used on a Mega or something, they would have to build all the way up again. And last of all, I went with a 4:2 ratio for my Megas, which was one of the most common ratios used. That said, it's okay to play up to 3 or 4 Alphamon as well, but since I only have 8 level 5s, I think it's safer to go with 6 Megas. I also chose to go with only 4 Digitama, as I prefer to consistently get Doraemon than hatching another Digimon, which might not contribute much to my game plan. But that might not last too long because we have Kyokomon coming in this weekend via BT-8. It gives you a 1000 DP boost if you stick a card under it. So this will probably be a good 5th Digitama to add into your Digitama deck. Furthermore, BT-8 brings us more X-Antibody support in the form of Ryudamon, Kinryumon, Hishariumon, and Oriumon. And it's also pretty cool that Oriumon has an inherited effect as well, despite being a level 6, though it's actually to support Alphamon. So 2 booster sets after Alphamon launch, it's finally getting the love it deserves. There's also a new Tamer, Mushayuji, and also a new option, Eisei Ryojin.
Well, what if BT-8 is just around the corner? This deck is still viable in BT-8, yeah! So, what about you? Have you built your own X-Antibody deck, or are you looking forward to using it in BT-8? Yep, drop me some comments, let me know how you played with it, or how do you plan to build it for BT-8? Yes, just let me know, holla at me at the comment section. Well, that's all from me today. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya!